Hey, how's it going guys? Phil here, and this is a review for the ASUS 23.8-inch TUF gaming monitor, model number VG249Q. You'll receive the monitor, 6-foot power cable, 6-foot DisplayPort cable, stand base, illustrated setup instructions, and warranty booklet. To assemble, place the bottom of the stand attached to the monitor out of the box into the center of the stand base. There's a hook that slides into this bracket. Then tighten the thumb screw towards the back using the small handle or a screwdriver. The footprint of the base is about 8.5 inches by 11 inches, and on the bottom are 6 small rubber feet to keep the stand from sliding. The monitor with the base weighs about 13.5 pounds. The screen is 21 inches wide, 12.75 inches tall, giving it a close to 24-inch viewable diagonal. The monitor is able to rotate on its base to pivot from portrait orientation to landscape in both directions. It's also adjustable in height 6 inches, making the maximum height 15 to 21 inches from the tabletop to the top of the screen. As well, the monitor can be swiveled about 60 degrees to either side, and tilts back about 20 degrees. The bezels at the top and sides of the screen are super thin at about 1/16 of an inch. However, along the bottom, the chin is about 3/4 of an inch. In the lower right, there are 6 unmarked buttons, the power button and the power LED. Let's take a look at the back of the monitor. On the left-hand side, we have the power cable input, and on the right, the video and audio inputs. There's one HDMI 1.4 port, a DisplayPort 1.2, and a VGA input with audio input. You also have 2 stereo 2-watt speakers along the bottom, and a plastic cover over the built-in cable management clips. There's also a Kensington lock slot on the right-hand side of the monitor. Note that the swivel stand can be removed and replaced with a compatible VESA mount by removing these screws. The easiest way to attach the cables to this monitor is by pivoting it to portrait mode, which gives you easy access to the power input and video inputs. If you use HDMI or DisplayPort as the connection type, audio is automatically transmitted to the monitor through these cables. Let's do a side-by-side comparison to the monitor I'd been using previously, the HP W2070-1D, which is a 1600 by 900 display at 60 Hz, while the VG249Q is 1920 by 1080, that's 1080p, at 144 Hz. Both are set to the factory default, and right away you can see the difference in color and saturation, where the ASUS colors are deep and rich, and my old monitor just looks washed out. Because the VG249 is an IPS display, it's got a wide range of viewing angles of 178 degrees, so even at near parallel, the image on the screen is sharp, and the colors don't really look that different, which is not the case with the TN monitor. Using the on-screen menu keys, you can choose a display profile under Game Visual. The default is Racing Mode. Scenery Mode has a higher saturation, brightness, and contrast. Cinema has cooler tones with more contrast. RTS RPG has lower contrast but more brightness, and is very similar to FPS mode. sRGB is pretty close to Racing Mode. And MOBA mode appears to restrict the color gamut and highlights certain elements on screen. I'm not a huge fan of the onboard menu navigation in general, as you can see the icons and functions change depending where you are in the menu tree. From the main menu, you can access things like input selection and blue light filter, which has 4 levels of filtering to protect your eyes from the harmful effects of blue light. However, as you can see, each level intensifies a slight yellow tint, and level 4 significantly darkens the screen. From the full menu page, you can also make adjustments to individual settings like brightness, contrast, saturation, color temp, and skin tone. Here's where you can also turn on adaptive sync or FreeSync with AMD video cards, so that the monitor's vertical refresh rate and the frame rate of the GPU will adjust to match each other dynamically to reduce tearing. For NVIDIA card users, this feature is called G-Sync, and you can turn it on in the NVIDIA control panel. But note that as of the making of this video, you'll get a non-compatibility warning for this monitor. Also, keep in mind that adaptive sync features are only available if you hook up your monitor using the DisplayPort cable. Now, if you play a lot of fast motion games, you may want to turn on Extreme Low Motion Blur, or ELMB. This helps to reduce ghosting effects for fast moving objects on the screen, but I did notice that it produced more visible corona artifacts. In general, I thought having ELMB set to standard was sufficient to remove the worst motion blur, since the improvement to turbo wasn't as noticeable and darkened the screen a lot. One of the advantages of having such thin bezels is that you can potentially use multiple monitors nearly seamlessly. For alignment purposes, you can toggle on alignment lines, so you can get all your monitors lined up. As well, you can toggle on a crosshair in the center of your screen, countdown timer for tracking gameplay time, and live FPS counter. The last setting I thought was kind of neat is the ability to turn on and off the power LED, though it's already pretty small and unobtrusive. When gaming, settings like Shadow Boost help bump up the visibility in dark areas. With adaptive sync enabled, there was virtually no tearing or microjitters, and I could tell there was a big difference in the smoothness of the visuals. Just note that adaptive sync and ELMB cannot be enabled at the same time, so you'll have to decide which is more important for the games that you play. As noted earlier, the biggest difference I saw between this monitor and my old one was in the color depth, as it has 8-bit color support via 6-bit plus FRC to achieve close to the full sRGB color space, resulting in more pronounced contrast and deeper saturation. For me, this also makes the monitor great for creative work for things like post-processing photos and editing video. The built-in stereo speakers are not that great, but if you don't have room for other speakers on your desk, they will output audio just fine. The master volume setting can also be accessed via the onboard controls. Also, if you use the VGA cable for video input, you'll have to hook up an aux cable for sound output. But in reality, there's no point in spending the money for this monitor if you're going to use VGA. Of course, this being an IPS panel, in pitch black conditions, there will be some degree of IPS glow along the edges and in the corners of the screen. That's just a limitation of the technology, and in most situations with ambient light, it isn't that noticeable. Overall, this monitor was a significant upgrade for my setup. It's a great entry-level IPS panel and really does improve the whole gaming experience with its high refresh rates. It's also budget-friendly and performs well as a general use monitor for those that work with visual media, and is perfectly suitable for watching full HD movies, just not in 4K. I hope you enjoyed this review. You can ask me any questions in the comments. I'll put a link to the product in the description below. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and join me next time.